you mind if I time myself just so I know
Yeah,
where
sure.
I'm at?
Yeah, I've got a timer as well. I'll let you know when we're
Awesome.
Are you
I was probably going to beep.
Two is better than one, I suppose.
Are you also recording? Are we
Yes.
live?
Yes.
We're live?
Yeah.
Yes, we are live.
Wait, live or like just recording?
No, I'm just joking.
We're live
we're
streaming
recording
it to the whole place.
Okay. Well, hello Andrew. Welcome to the Exec Hustings for the position of JCR President. As you know, I am Shaban. I am the JCR Chair.
I'm Elisa, I'm VP Welfare.
I'm Terry, I'm Faxer. I'm Callum, I'm Senior Fraps.
And Kieran can't speak because he's eating.
I'm Kieran, Outreach Officer.
And I'm Sheehan, the JCR President. It's going to have 20 minutes. First thing, you can go through your manifesto, your policies, take as much time as you want, but just bear in mind we have 20 minutes total. And then after you've presented, we'll have questions for you. And that's that. So, in your own time.
Yep. Ready?
Yeah,
Go. Right, so you guys can all read, so I'm not really going to explain every single point, but I'm just going to go through a couple of the main ones. So I feel like in Michaelmas term, it'd be the perfect place to have another BOP. I'm not quite sure on the actual structure of who would organise it or anything, but I was thinking it could be used as some form of fundraising opportunity. But I had to speak to Kieran about that. But in terms of, it's just the best place to have another BOP. And there's not that many over the year, which is kind of sad because they're quite good for livers in, because obviously there's a party on their front doorstep, and it's the least busy time of the year to actually have a new BOP, so that'll be the best time to have it. Going through, so I want to, if I was to be president, I'd like to have set drop-in hours, so that means that I know I've been in the office quite a few times, and someone will pop in and be like, is she or Tyrion around? I'm like, they're not here at the moment. So some form of set hours of which someone knows they can reach you. Obviously there's just Facebook Messenger, but sometimes people need to come and see you in person. So I think that'd be quite useful. And also that kind of links into, also it was mentioned in the meeting on Sunday, but it'd also be very, very useful I think for exec, just so exec know when I'm there, and also I'd be more open to if the exec wanted to come and say hello to me and speak to me about anything. You guys will presumably, hopefully, have had handovers for your roles. Unless you've not spoken to each other about them, they can be quite inconsistent in how detailed and how explanatory, is that even a word? They can be very in-depth or they can be extremely shallow. And I feel like there needs to be some form of supervision just to make sure that the absolute basics of the job are down, and if you need to know specifics, that they are there. Otherwise, you could be kind of stranded a bit in terms of being able to do your job once you've been handed over. Moving on again, so I want to make the exec more accessible. I've always found that the exec have been kind of, if you know someone who's an exec or someone who's really involved in college, then that's kind of the only way that you hear about these roles, and that's because basically every 3 weeks you get a bunch of things from the chair saying, this role is open for nomination, and so you've got basically a week to try and figure out if you want to do it or not. I want to have it so you have a year-round explanation of what the roles are, what you do. And I think I just really, really help people if they want to plan ahead and think, I want to get more interested, I'm more involved with college, I enjoy my outreach project, I want to go for outreach officer. The information's there, they don't have to wait until the election period to get all of that information. So I want to reinforce college's role in welfare, because this year they've been a bit lax on that side of things, in my opinion. So that's just one of the things that I want to do, because we have student volunteers that are kind of being left behind by college. Another thing which kind of ties into the whole exec being accessible thing is this idea of meet the exec and explanation of the JCR during the community talks in Freshers Week. So this year we had the outreach projects do a half an hour slot, which is obviously very important because the outreach projects are the main thing about Milder. But I think we could also just make the outreach slot slightly smaller and instead have just a little beginning intro basically saying the JCR is a student-led organisation, it's run by you and your peers, it's all headed up by the exec, this is what they do, maybe have some of the exec there. I think it would just be really, really helpful to get them straight in and understanding what the JCR is, because I know when I got here I was like, okay, what's the JCR levy? Why am I paying more money to college and then you kind of slowly realise that the JCR and the college are separate things, and you're like, wait, is the JCR a room or an organisation? Anyway, so that's sort of like my general understanding of what should happen during freshman. I think that would really help. As for the rest of my policies on my manifesto, like they're fairly standard. I'm sure if you have read them that you may have some questions, so I won't like go into too much detail on them. What I will go into detail with is the things that my ideas that I've had in general, but didn't put on my manifesto because they either didn't fit or they're a bit too kind of specific and not generally appealing to the eye really. But yeah, so just this idea of checking up on the exec, I feel like there should be some completely informal or maybe a little bit formal process of just every couple of weeks checking up on all of the exec officers, making sure that their commitments inside and outside of their role as exec are okay. If they need to have some like responsibilities just temporarily alleviated from them just so they can focus on their degree or whatever, I think just have that option there would just make life a lot easier for the exec members. So another thing is the bar and shop applications. I feel like because they are paid positions, they need to have basically like this extra level of transparency and scrutiny. I'm not sure what that would be necessarily, but I think it's just a generally good idea that we make it as open and transparent as possible. And something I mentioned for the Fraps, for the rejection criteria, I think it'd be quite useful to just have like, this is the reason why we haven't been able to take you on and all that. But anyway, so another thing for the bar and shop, because they are paid, I feel like there needs to be some form of question that would have to be kind of subtle, but asking basically what their financial situation is, because you could have two people who are the same level of competence, but one of them could be really struggling to pay for university. You have one person who is absolutely fine, and obviously I think it's really important that we get that person who needs the job for university to be the person that gets into bar or to shop. So that was just an idea. Again, it's probably quite difficult to ask it tactfully, and it's probably quite personal, but I think that would be an important step in making sure that it is, you know, the bar and shop are part-time jobs, they're being used to the maximum for Mildertians. I want to create like an election calendar at the beginning of the year, so that if you are thinking of going for a role, whether it's a specific one or just in general want to get more involved, like you can actually see when your thing is, because I think at the beginning of this term was when we were deciding when things were slotting about for this term, and so like we don't even know at the beginning of term, so how can anyone else kind of plan their lives around that? So I think it would be very useful to have from the beginning of the year the election calendar sorted and then published so that people can reference that, and probably on the website, because that's where all of the information is kind of just there for people to see. How am I doing for time? Perfect. So one thing that's been kind of floated around as an idea, I think is kind of a important one, also because I'm personally involved with it. I think that we should seriously look at an alternative for paint party in Freshers Week, because it is very much reliant on the weather, as we found out this year. It's quite expensive to order all of that paint and then not use it, both expensive in money and Frep hours packing the packets. So I think some form of alternative that we can implement instead in case there's a rain plan, or completely get rid of paint party whatsoever, I think would be a good conversation to have at least. So going more into Freshers Week, I feel like there needs to be a full week plan for the Freps of when they need to come in, when they can go home, what's happening during the day, and so they just on a general like mind level can figure out what's going on, but then also just more organisation wise they have a complete plan of the week, and I think it will just make life a lot easier for all of the Freps. A couple of other like minor things. The website is interesting, but the content on it is very much out of date, and I think it's a difficult project to take because there's such a massive job, but I think there needs to be some form of overhaul this summer with hopefully webcom, and I'd be happy to help out. It just getting the website completely up to date. I think it'd be very useful, because it is, as much as the Facebook group is useful, information gets lost so quickly, whereas the website, it's all there and you can just get to the right information. In terms of tech in college, we need to have some form of document. It was a question that was asked, I think by Spencer in the meeting, with the issues facing tech. And one of the things I did raise was there needs to be some form of document that says, this is how you do tech in college, this is how you set up for a bot, this is how you set up for a band, and therefore hopefully it means that if we do have a situation like this again where we don't have any tech support really, that we can manage that. And it also helps training up new techs, because explaining something in person or just saying read that document, both together, they just make the learning process a lot easier. That was 10 minutes. Exactly. Yeah, it just popped up on my phone. So yeah, questions, anyone?
I'll start on your first point there.
Yeah.
You did touch on this. Just wondering, putting you a bit on the spot.
Yeah.
You acknowledged that adding a new bot in Michaelmas was part of the reasons that, at least I know from the fundraising point of view, we don't have any events in Michaelmas just because we don't actually have the teams available.
The teams available, yeah.
So none of the outreach teams have teams available, and actually most of the other teams that could possibly win a bot. I was wondering how you might address that, either booking to use. How might you address that issue?
Well, honestly, I've never thought of the fundraiser. It just sort of popped to my head in the moment, which is unfortunate because I'm being called out on it. I don't know. I would say that it doesn't have to be a fundraising event. Just the idea of a BOP, I think, is a good idea. But if we would make it a fundraising event, then generally, you can easily just appoint a temporary committee to organise that event. I'm pretty sure there's just a general VM pot of fundraising money. I might be wrong. No? Okay, I'm wrong. Anyway, probably moving away from the fundraising idea then, just be a matter of if someone wants to run a BOP. I was imagining maybe sixth week of Michaelmas, just because that's kind of closer to the end. It's kind of not when deadlines are hitting. And it's kind of an alternative to Michaelmas Ball, which is obviously very expensive and generally not as accessible as like a £4 BOP. So yeah, from the fundraising point of view, you are correct that it's probably not going to be logistically possible, but I still think it would be a good idea to have another BOP.
I wanted to ask about the assumption that you were getting rid of personal factors in the Frep application.
Yeah.
How would you kind of implement that in practice? Or what would that entail?
Well, so it's part of the point that you should have a set. You should go into as the panel that assesses the applicants to be Fraps. You should have a set list of rejection criteria. So you say either I'm really sorry, but you're a really great candidate, but it was just other people kind of had more things going on, or you could say specifically that we don't think you have the right personality or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then from that list, a comprehensive list of criteria, you can say those are that. From the personal side of things, I don't think it's fair for someone to go, I don't work well with this person, therefore they shouldn't be a Frep, because that's a personal factor, and at the end of the day you might not necessarily be working with them, and at the end of the day you're always kind of working with people that you don't necessarily get along with and have the same personality as. That doesn't mean they're going to be an amazing Frep for their corridor, if that makes sense. So it's just the level of personal, from the panel's perspective, if they don't have a personal connection with this person, I don't think that should affect their application, because they might be an extremely good Frep as it is. So just sort of like that.
Could I just query some of the things you said on the
Yeah, that's fine.
So for instance, when it comes to tech, you said you established a new tech com. What do you mean by that, seeing as we currently don't have any yet?
Where's that?
It says head of tech 2019 to 20, establish new tech com.
Well, I'm establishing this new tech committee. I opened applications for it. You've done the tech bursary. but I've established it. I've helped train up the 4 people that are involved.
What are they trained in? Because the college are unaware of any trained techies we have.
Well, not officially trained, but I've been showing them the ropes. They now do the staging. They now can put the staging up without my
They
help.
can't do the staging on their own.
Well, they did. From a safety regulation point of view, Katie asked me to check it over,
Mhm.
but from my standpoint, they're pretty much safe to put up the stage now.
But that's not the view of college. So they can't do it with. I'm not criticising. They can't currently do it
Okay.
on their own. So they're not. I would say that's potentially a slight extension.
Exaggeration.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
And so, one of the things as president you've got to do is really be good at like working with people,
Yeah.
encouraging them,
Mhm.
motivating them,
Mhm.
because often people have got lots of personal things going on.
Yeah.
They got summatives or whatever.
Yeah.
So, what experience do you think you have of leading and working with a group of people?
Well, I draw it back to tech. So, basically, for tech, like as you know, when you're setting up a stage, you have a committee of either 5 people or, when it comes to Fraps, 50 people. And so you've got to liaise with all those 50 people, direct 50 people to do kind of manual handling where they generally won't want to do it. They're very unenthused to lift these massive panels of staging. But I feel like I've been a lot better than predecessors on TechCom in terms of getting people motivated, being a lot more organised in that I personally have like drawn out plans of what can happen at the same time, so what jobs can happen in parallel, and then making sure that I've got a team of 5 people that are doing this job whilst the rest of them are getting panels. I feel like I did very well at motivating people when I've been doing the tech and leading people. So that's one example. Another example, just generally, other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I am quite a motivational and an enthusing person, I would say. I think that is shown through that tech thing, because I have been told that it's been a lot better than in previous years, because, you know, rather than a techie just saying, yeah, can you move some staging over there? You know, I'm quite active in my, you just need to do that quickly, and, please can I ask you to do this? You know, I feel like I'm a lot more personable person. And I think that's
I agree.
reflected.
I would say that I don't know whether it necessarily has really had that effect. I don't remember having to get people in from other colleges to tech events before.
Yes, but that's a different issue. That's the issue of we don't have enough people on TechCom that can run an event. Whereas I'm talking about, I have a committee of like 50 people who have no clue what they're doing. They don't really want to be there. They're either before the event where they just want to get ready for the event, or they're after the event where they're drunk and they just want to go home. And I feel like in that aspect, which is what you asked me, which was about leading a team, I think I've done extremely well.
On the accountable handovers, can you explain, are you going to have a central repository of them, or how is it, in what way accountable?
Accountable in that that before your handover meeting, you like share it with the chair or whatever, just so that you don't have a handover that says, you know, you do this and you do that. Or for instance, my handover document was 3 years old. It was by who's the corrupt vice president?
Alex Darby.
Yeah.
That probably should be on the record.
But anyway,
Yeah. Basically, the point is that, you know, handovers, they get old. People that really don't want to do them, and so eventually you get long enough throughout the years that you then have an out-of-date handover. So I had to, for my handover, I had to speak to the head chef. I had to speak to Phil to try and learn, you know, when I needed to deliver stuff for formals, so the dietaries, the table plan, all of that. I had to completely learn that brand new because it wasn't mentioned in my handover document. I feel like there needs to be some form of like list of things that for this role we need to make sure that in the handover document there's this, and then every year it needs to be made sure that that is still included, and that you're not going to have to fish around for information when you first get into your role.
Is that just for executive roles, or for other leadership roles within JCR?
Well, it's mainly targeted at the exec, but I think it might be on a more grand scale for all officers. It might be a challenge, just like logistically checking all of those handovers. But I think it would be good to set a culture that, you know, these handovers need to be proper and need to be effective, as opposed to someone coming into their role and going, I've got a handover document and I don't know what I'm doing. So that would be my idea behind it.
We've only got sort of a minute-ish left, but
Yeah.
if we go over that, I guess a little bit. How do you seek to resolve conflicts between student and staff?
Between student and staff, it's an odd balance, because obviously you have two very different perspectives of how the JCR works, and it's something I found this year being included in the senior leadership team meetings, is that college have a very different idea of what the JCR does and why it does it. So I suppose from the president's point of view, you've got a foot in both camps. So I suppose the best thing to do is kind of mediate best you can, and try and come up with a compromise that helps and benefits both sides. And I guess try not to take too much of a stance on either side, but obviously focus more on the JCR point of view, because you want the JCR president.
We are just going to run over this one, but sort of in 30 seconds or 45 seconds, could you just summarise what you see as the role of president to be?
I'd say that the president is just this person in college who is involved pretty much in everything and can be relied on to kind of just help out. I feel like the president doesn't have a very specific role other than just being there, just in case anyone needs them to know generally what's going on, and just kind of lead through helping people to make the JCR just like a better place. So yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. I suppose that concludes our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.